But now, speaking of pushing the stuff, it is time for Mike's ready for it. The karate chop of doom. It's the bottom line, everybody.
Bottom line, underscoring the bottom line. And that's the only thing that we call it, nothing else.
Right. Some people call it the terrible twos. Mike likes to call it the bottom line. Here we go. It's the final two questions of the show. Two most important questions, too. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is question number 1. What would you rate this first episode of Hawkeye?
Did I watch the wrong show? I watched a show called Hawkeye on Disney Plus.
Oh, Hawkeye, sorry.
You guys keep talking about this other different show that
Freudian
I haven't heard of.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, I didn't care too much for this show. It was like I think someone else said, and I said they didn't take a lot of risks. It was very safe and very straightforward. As Jacqueline has mentioned, very formulaic, and yeah, but it's still Marvel. So that gives it some points, even though Hawkeye is not my favorite character. So I just to be nice, I give it a 4.5.
Wow.
Okay.
You know, the way you were describing it just now, I was like typing in already 4.5 because that means you set the stage for a 4.5 in the way you were describing how you got to it.
Well, that's why I gave it a 4.5. Those are my reasons.
Yep, that's perfectly explained, I'd say. Jackie, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Hawkeye?
I'd probably give it probably a 6.5. There are things that are set up that, it's like, okay, I'm curious, but there are things that were a little jarring. There were a few things that were like, what, like that felt a little lazy or felt safe. But I knew that coming in because it's a Marvel show. Marvel tends to have a formula, and they didn't shock me or anything. This wasn't a Loki. This wasn't, a WandaVision or anything like that. This was another Marvel project. But I do like keeping up with Marvel stuff, so I will be watching it again. And it wasn't like it was bad. So it didn't hook me right away with the first episode, but I have a feeling it might hook you by like episode 3 or 4. But we'll see.
Yeah, just watch the first 8 episodes, and then you'll be hooked.
Yeah,
there you go. Right,
I'll tell you, this was a very safe show, as we said. It was an origin story. It wasn't a show about hot guy. It was an origin story for a hot girl, and so that made it formulaic, as you said, and there was nothing bad. There was not one thing that I thought was terrible. So I can't give it a sub 5, really. I'm not gonna give it a pass because it's Marvel, but I'm also not gonna judge that against it because I expect a lot. But I was actually disappointed. I'll tell you why am I holding crazy glue? I'll tell you when
here, I can hold something random too, just to make you feel normal.
Thank you. So I'll tell you, when the show ended, I didn't realize that it was disappointing to me until the show ended. As soon as it ended and it went boom, drop credits, I said out loud, wow, that show did nothing for me. And then I said it again, that really did nothing for me. And that's when I realized, boy, this show did nothing for me because that was my automatic reaction. Anyway, 5.5, which is a great average between Michael's 4.5 and Jackie's 6.5, but that's what I'm giving it, 5.5, because it's nothing bad. It was fine. It was.
Who did you say that to?
I guess myself, like a freaking weirdo at 1 a.m. Like it just came out of me. I wasn't thinking it. I only thought it after it came out. It just ended. I said, wow, that did nothing for me. And I was like, well, I guess I know how I feel about this show. Cause I was just surprised when it ended. I was like, oh, that's the totality of I just spent 50 minutes and it was just like, there was nothing. It didn't give me anything. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's what we rated it. The most important question here is, for the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Marvel's Hawkeye. And I said it right for you, Michael. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, would you watch the second episode of your own volition?
Yeah, I would. Begrudgingly, I would. And I am giving it a pass because it's Marvel. And I am just gonna watch it just because I'm a Marvel completist and I want to see everything that Marvel does. Because if you miss something, like you could be watching a movie and you're like, wait, what was that about? Oh, and then they can, oh, well, that was obviously explained in Hawkeye. So if you haven't watched Hawkeye, I don't know how you expect to know everything. But so that's the only reason I would watch the next episode and the rest of it. I will. My wife, when we got done watching it, she's like, I'm not watching any more of that.
She's like, you're on your own with this one, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I had to like drag her to watch WandaVision. After I watched the next few episodes, I was like, baby, you gotta stick with it. You gotta see these next episodes. It was hard for her though, as Ryan can attest. He didn't care much for the first episode. She didn't care much for the first episode, and it was like pulling teeth trying to get her to watch it. But I did.
You pulled the teeth. Huh? Well, Jackie,
I got them in my.
I didn't know you were a dentist.
In a
That's
jar.
Awesome.
Jackie,
congrats.
Would you? We may have gotten a hint, but would you watch the second episode?
Small subtle hint. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I see a lot of potential. I see a lot of things that I can like, and it's Marvel, so you kind of have to expect things to kind of be a little lazy here and there. Not like lazy here and there. Like there's lots of things that are very high quality or whatever, but there are things that just like the defying of physics of things, or things that just don't make sense because of some writer who decided, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we make her struggle through a friggin' window? I'm not going to get over that. I don't like that at all. That made me, I was like, girl, you just kicked 3 friggin' guys' ass who were like twice your size or 3 times your size. I don't know how much anytime, but
they were big.
They were huge. Like, where's the logic behind all that? Anyway, but no, I see a lot of potential. I definitely like what the actress brought with Kate. And it'll be fun. I think it'll be fine. Like I think the people who did rave about it were multiple episodes in. It wasn't like first episode in and like, oh, you guys got to watch this or anything like that. So it's like, okay, let's give it another shot. Let's give it a few more episodes. Yeah. Okay. So that's me.
I'm not nearly as forgiving. If something is fine, fuck no. So for me, it's a no. It's an easy no. And I do think that it might be kind of like what Michael, you were saying, something about like being a Marvel completist. I did think a couple times, hey, maybe I've missed some things in other shows or other movies that I may have missed that would have made this more entertaining. Maybe maybe if I knew about the source material, I'd be raving about it. I'd be like, oh my God, it's so close to the source material. The comic books were super boring too. This is perfect. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. But I'm not close to the source material. I haven't watched any show, in fact, strictly because of the source material, except for the X-Men movies. That's the only movies I've seen, but I haven't. Other than that, that doesn't, it has to be good for me. I'm not really addicted to the source material personally. So it's a no for me. I wish it well. I wish it gets better, but I'll never know.
This first season, this first and probably only season, if the other Marvel shows are, I guess Loki said they were going to have another season, but the other Marvel shows kind of ended after one season, but there's only 6 episodes. And just kind of checking ahead on IMDb, these first 2 episodes are both 7 point something, but then the other 4 episodes are all 8 point something. So it does get better. So
I feel like they all consistently get better, but I will say they might want to consider making the first episode good too. Just a thought.
Loki was damn good to me.
Yeah, I think though, with certain certain characters, it's hard to, like, Loki started out strong because one, Loki's already a huge, massive favorite.
Right.
And the same with I wouldn't say Wanda because yeah, exactly. So I think the reason why, like, Loki had such a head start because, I mean, Todd Hiddleston, can't even say his last name. Hiddleston brought so much to Loki that you just friggin' love. Like, you're not supposed to really like Loki. Like, he's well, not a villain, but kind of an anti-hero. So, but yeah, he had such a strong start. So it was a little unfair to compare it to that. Especially since Hawkeye is usually, most people's least favorite Avenger. You know,
but you can't hold it against them. It could still be a good show.
You can't hold it against him. But at the same time, when you have your least favorite, character out of a group, usually that's kind of where you want to make the interesting choices, where you want to go in different directions or whatever. And it's like, we're going to play it safe because we don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know what to do with him or whatever. Right. And I see why they focused on her, because she's obviously going to be taking his place in the Avengers group or whatever. But and it's good to establish her.
Yep.
But yeah, he was kind of an afterthought, like, in this episode, and I can understand the dislike towards it because obviously it's named Hawkeye, and we're watching him go through a musical in New York and talk to his kids at a restaurant, getting free food and feeling uncomfortable about it. Like, oh, okay, that's it. And then you see like literally 3 minutes of him fighting and not even using a bow and arrow or anything, just fighting. And he was towel whipping people. I was like, he was like, I was like, what? You don't have like a knife or something? But I guess they don't want to show, that kind of violence or something. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Everybody at home, if you want to see that kind of violence, just be aware that we've also reviewed Loki. We reviewed Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Let's see. WandaVision was our episode number 44. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was episode number 54. And what was the other one? Loki was episode number 65. So if you want to check those out, definitely. We also did MODOK was episode 67. The Avengers United They Stand was episode 62. Lots of Marvel stuff.
We've done a lot of Marvels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So check that out. I feel like I've rated all of them relatively similarly. But everybody check those out. But we got to run now. So if you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, just say WTF or type WTF and whatever the show is that you'd like us to review. That's Watch the First. We will do that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is this podcast was pretty cool. And also, I liked Jackie's shirt in her background.
Yay!
It's funny. This funny and colorful.
Podcast. This podcast was a great review of a subpar show.
This podcast was brought to you by Send Noodles. Send Noodles. Not send nudes, but send noodles. Like the guy that Mike mentioned before this podcast even started. Who was that guy, Mike?
Yep. Noodles.
I mentioned Noodles, the guitarist of The Offspring, too. So now we're all set. You did too. Mm-hmm.
There we go. Everybody contributed.
And speaking of contributing, always remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg likes to say.
Don't forget to register to be an organ donor. Just go to donatelife.com or .net. Oh, man, it's kind of like disappearing a little bit.
It is having trouble.
Donate Life, and then go there and click on register and register to be an organ donor. Someone could get a kidney like I did. Or someone can get a liver or a heart or a pancreas or what else? There was other things, but I forget. But the point is you can help save lives and help heal people too. But after you do that, first go register to be an organ donor. After you're done doing that, then just don't forget to watch the first of things.
All right, freeze frame. Be Hawkeye. This is what he looks like. And now be hot girl.
Pew pew pew. Wait, no. Pew. I don't know.